Paying your bills, buying food, taking care of your children. All of these life necessities naturally require going to work and having an income of some kind. But for women, it can be harder to pay these bills. According to PayScale, gender pay gap statistics for 2020, on average, for every dollar a white man makes, women make 81 cents, and that is on average for all women. The average wage for women varies from woman to woman and is much worse for women of color. White women make on average 79 cents per white man's dollar. African American women make 62 cents per dollar, and Hispanic women make 54 cents per dollar. The gender wage gap refers to the difference in earnings between men and women. Experts have calculated this gap in a multitude of ways, but the varying calculations point to a consensus. Women consistently earn less than men. Most people discuss the wage gap in terms of dollars and cents, which may unintentionally obscure the real impact on working women and their families. For example, if people say women earn 81 cents per $1, this makes the gap seem much smaller than it actually is. For context, a woman working full-time year-round earned $10,194 less than her male counterpart in 2018. If this wage gap were to remain unchanged, she would earn $400,760 less than a man over the course of a 40-year career. It's a new age. Why are women still making less than men? Well, of course, there's outright discrimination. The largest factor of the wage gap is gender roles and the expectation of women. A woman has a child, she is expected to take care of the child. The father is, of course, expected to help, but the womanly role has always been child rearing, while the man went to work. She is expected to take off work, she is expected to go to doctor's appointments, school PTA meetings, drop them off at friends, and other caregiving roles. This leads to women, mothers, spending less time at work, which leads to them not being promoted. While men of their age and status get promoted and start earning more, mothers stay put, which over time leads to them earning much less in the entirety of their careers. Women and mothers are essentially being punished for having children while fathers are not. If we want this to change, we have to normalize fathers spending just as much time with children as mothers. Near the end of the 20th century, a huge leap for new working mothers was passed, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act and the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 helped to protect pregnant employees from loss of wages and other damages while they were pregnant. This was a huge step. Even though it didn't push women towards equal pay, it defended their rights to take leave for being pregnant and pushed them to still get the wages they earned while they were away. With the Pregnancy Discrimination Act in place, workplaces could no longer withhold wages from pregnant women or fire them because of pregnancy. The FMLA was signed into law by President Bill Clinton in 1993. It allows workers to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave to bond with a newborn, newly adopted, or newly placed child, care for a seriously ill child, spouse, or parent, or care for their own serious health condition without fear of losing their jobs. This helped both men and women care for their children without the loss of a job. But as it was usually women caring for their children, and the leave was unpaid, there was still that gap that made it just that much harder for them to be on the same wages as their male coworkers. These acts helped mothers and fathers with juggling jobs and children, but none of these acts could have happened without the Equal Pay Act of 1963, arguably one of the biggest acts for the advancement of women's rights in the 20th century. Until the early 1960s, newspapers published separate job listings for men and women. Jobs were categorized according to sex, with the higher level jobs listed almost exclusively under help wanted male, while lower level, lower paid jobs would run female only. In some cases, the ads ran identical jobs under male and female listings, but with separate pay scales. Separate, of course, meant unequal. Between 1950 and 1960, women with full-time jobs earned on average between 59 to 64 cents for every dollar their male counterparts earned in the same job. The Equal Pay Act mandated that employers cannot award unequal wages or benefits to men and women working jobs that require equal skill, effort, and responsibility and which are performed under similar working conditions. Since 1963, when the Equal Pay Act was signed, the closing of the wage gap between men and women has been at a rate of about half a penny per year. The effects of this act have been limited as women still earn less than the dollar than men. However, it was still a huge step in starting change. War was good for women workers. They could do all the jobs men left behind. In 1918, at the beginning of World War I, the United States Employment Service published lists of jobs that were suitable for women in order to encourage men in those occupations to switch to jobs that supported the war effort. Since women were doing work that men would ordinarily do, the National War Labor Board decided they should be paid the same. If it shall become necessary to employ women in work ordinarily performed by men, they must be allowed equal pay for equal work. Equal pay was championed by unions and male workers, although not for entirely altruistic reasons. Most were worried that if women were paid less for the same work, management could dilute male workers' wages after they returned from the war. After the war ended, the demand for equal pay seemed to lose steam. Men went back to their place in the workforce and women went back to their place at home. Employees of the Western Union Telegraph Company went on strike in 1883 to try to get equal pay for equal work for its male and female employees. This was overall an unsuccessful strike, but it did help to make the issue more well known and was a very early public demand for equal pay for women. One of the first calls for equal pay was in 1869. A letter to the editor of the New York Times questioned why female government employees were not paid the same as male ones. This letter helped spark a discussion about the difference between men and women's wages for more than a century to come. The author certainly wasn't the first woman to discuss income inequality, but she was a ripple in a pond that would come before a splash that would soon become a wave of women's rights throughout the 20th and early 21st century. The gender wage gap has certainly come a long way in a century, but still has a long way to go. Women and men now have access to the same jobs. They can become CEOs and scientists. They can even be sworn in as heads of state. Discrimination based on sex is now technically illegal, so there is a world of possibilities. But the wage gap hasn't closed and will not close until societal expectations stop holding women back. And in order for women and men to really be equal, there needs to be longer maternal and paternal paid leave. And the expectations of women and men need to be equalized. Taking care of children is not a woman's job or a man's job, it is the parent's job.